This is Amud Yomi Gemara in Shabbos Daf Samach Vav Amud Beis. I'm holding on the bottom of Samach Vav Amud Aleph, 6 lines from the bottom at the 2 dots. Vim Yishla Beis Kibol Kititin Tamei. We're in the middle of discussing the different items that a handicapped person, Rahman al-Islam, would utilize to walk and whether he's allowed to walk with them on Shabbos. So the Mishnah said if his wooden foot has a base keyboard, is an area that they used to stuff it up with rags. I guess it would, cushion the blow between his leg and the wooden foot or something like that. Then the wooden foot, is a mekabel toma. Says the Gemara for the simple reason why, because it's a base keyboard. Anything with a base keyboard, anything with a receptacle is a mekabel toma. Amar Abaye, tomai tami tumas mis. What this means is it's mekabel tumas mis. Ve'in tami midras. However, it will not be mekabel tumas midras, and the reason being is that the functionality of the item is not to carry the person, but rather to be a foot, and therefore it's only going to be mekabel tuma on the highest level of tumas mis. And the reason being, Abaye holds that tumas midras is in a category unto itself, in that it's only going to have tumas midras if the item is utilized for a person's weight, a chair that you sit on, and something like that. But Rava Amarav Tami tumas mis. Amar Rava Minamin Alad. I know this. It's says Rava Agala Shal Katan Tamei Amis. Tamei Midras, says Rava, a wagon of a child is Tamei Tumas Midras. Even though it's only occasionally used to carry the child, still, once it is that part of its usage, it's mekabel tumas midras. So to over here, the leg lemaisa at times supports the person, therefore it's mekabel tumas midras. Says Abaye, in the case of the wagon, the child is on it often, and that's why is not often. So we're arguing within percentage points and within the commonality of how often this item and what we'll call the label on this item is. Is it a weight-bearing item or not? So Amar Abaye says, I know that it's not mekabel tumas midras. What's my makar Titania? You have a stick, an elderly person's walking stick. Tar miklam. It supports the person's weight when he walks. Says Abaye, that's not called its function, therefore it is not mekabel toma. Rava, how does he answer? Hasam, as we turn over to Samach Vav and Beis, the Tarutze Sugya Avida. Says Rava, if we were to define the purpose of the walking stick, says Rava, you're right, that it doesn't support weight because it's not its purpose. Its purpose is to allow you to walk straight, and that's the reason why it's not mekabel toma. Whereas Davida, this wooden foot, is meant to lean upon v'samach aliyeh, and therefore it says Rav, it is mekabel tumas midras. Continues quoting the Mishnah. The second line of Samach Vav Beis, Tamein midras, the chair and the leg supports I used to lean on is mekabel tumas midras. Says the Gemara Tanatana Kamei Rav Yochanan Lazara. You could walk into the Azara with these leg supports. Amar lei, I learned in another brayso that an isha chaletzes boy, a woman could perform chalitza with such a leg support. This leg support has a halachic status of a shoe. Vat amri nichnas. Nichlasin, you're telling me you let it go into the Azara? Of course not. You can't wear shoes in the Azara. Tani. So rather, change the brayso to read, Ein nichlasin Azara. Looked him in, tahira. The Mishnah continue, looked him in these masks. Costumes are tar, and you're not allowed to wear them out on Shabbos. I looked him in. Amaravua chamora da'achva. It's a donkey that I carried upon the shoulders of clowns. Rav Baba Amar Kshiri, it stilts. Rav Barhuna Amar Prami are masks. So different pshatim, different types of clown-like items, which are certainly not the normal attire that people walk around with wearing, and therefore you cannot carry them on Shabbos in Rishus Harabim. We continue with the Mishnah on the first wide line. Young boys could go out with ksharim, with knots. We'll see what that means. Princes, bezugin, golden bells. V'chol adam, Really, kol adam, really any person can go out with these bells, but the Mishnah talks about b'nei malachim because that's the normal case of someone going out with these bells. But really, anyone would be allowed to. Says the Gemara. The first part of the Mishnah said ksharim. What are these ksharim? Amar Rav Ada Mari, Amar Rav Nachman bar Baruch, Amar Rav Ashi bar Ovin, Amar Rav Yehuda, quite the name. Kishure pua, knots of a plant called pua, which they would hang around the boys' necks, and it had some medicinal curing properties. Amar Abaya, Amar Li'eh, my mother told me, and of course we know that Abaya did not have a mother. His mother was nifteres when she gave birth to Abaye, so it refers to the nurse that raised him. Amar Li'eh, Talasa Mukmi, 3 knots, Chamisha Masi, 5 heal, Shiva Afilu Kshafim Ali, 7 knots help even for Kshafim. So 3 knots could make it not get worse, 5 will make it better, and 7 even help against all the Kshafim, etc. It has to be that the knots are not exposed to sunlight. These knots of this madder plant can't be exposed to sunlight. Not exposed to rain. Not exposed to the sounds of metal clanking. The sounds of a rooster. Sounds of footsteps. Obviously, these are siguli types of things which are a little bit beyond our pay grade to fully understand. Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak, Nofal Puta Bibira, says Rav Nachman Yitzchak, with all the qualifications, what these knots have to be. They can't hear this, they can't be that, they can't be outside. It's sort of your solution has fallen into a pit. It's really not so user-friendly, we'll call it. Myri Abanim, says Gemara, why Banim Davka? Filu Bana Isnami. If you have this necklace that has these curing properties, why can't a girl go out wearing it? Myri Kitani, my only young children, Filu Gedalim Nami. Says Gemara, you're right. So Mike Ksharim, rather, what did the Mishnah mean when it said that Banim go out with Ksharim, Ki other Amar Avin Barhuna, Amar Rav Chama Bar Guria? Ben Sheish like Gaguin, I love him, a child that's yearning for the Tata, Noitel Ritzua, Mimino Shal Yamin. The father takes a strap of his own right shoe, V'koshel Bismalai, and ties it to the boy's left arm. And this somehow has the soothing powers of calming down the boy. Amar Nachman Yitzchak, V'simanech Tefillin, the simon is Tefillin, the same way by Tefillin, it's use your right arm to tie on the left side, so too over here. Says the Gemara, once we quote Avin Barhuna in one regard, we quote it in a second. Amar Avin Barhuna, Amar Rav Chama bar Guria, Sachufei Kasa Atibura b'Shabbat Shaber Dami. To put a hot cup upside down on someone's stomach on Shabbos is good. And of course, all these things, as we always mention, these healings and these different witchcraft types of items are a little bit beyond, different pshatim always, whether they're supposed to be taken literally or not, but we're just going to go for Pashit Pshat. You're allowed to mix oil and salt on the palms of one's hands and the soles of one's feet to Shabbos. This seemingly had the powers to cure shikrus, inebriation. As Rav Huna, when he came home for the yeshiva of Rav mibei Rav Chia, Rav Chia mibei Rabbi, when they were inebriated, Rashi says that in order to understand the amkus of Torah, the Rabbeim would give their Talmidim wine to drink. Of course, this is a different form of inebriation. This is not shechros like we would call it. Maisi mishcha milcha, they bring oil and salt, v'shayfi lehu legavata, and they would smear it for them. They do v'gavata techarayu v'amri on their soles of their hands and their feet, and they would say, ki hechi detzila mishcha, just like this oil thins out in your hands and your feet. Leitzil chamer de plani bar planisa, let the wine thin out. V'iloi, and if they didn't have oil and salt, maisi shia dedaina v'shar le b'maya v'amar, they would bring clay from the seal of a barrel, soak it in water, and say, just like the seal, this clay is thinning out. Third teaching, you're allowed to literally choke on Shabbos. It's a form of strangulation. which is a form of manipulation of the neck bone, which had some healing powers. Sounds like a good chiropractor session. To wrap an infant on Shabbos, which is what they used to do to straighten out the bones of the baby, is allowed. Rav Papa Masni Banim. Rav Papa learned children plural. Rav Zin Masni Ben, child. Says the Gemara, Rav Papa Masni Banim, V'tarvayu Masni Lu Ba'avin Barhuna. Both of them are the name of Avin Barhuna. Rav Zin Masni Ben, Kamaita Masni Avin Barhuna. V'hai, in the second din, regarding wrapping the child to straighten out the bones, Masla Barabba Bar Rachana. Tamar Rachana, Lapupa Yunuka B'Shabata, Shabir, Dami, Amar Rabbi, Amar Li, my mother told me, Kol Minyane Bismadi Ima, all incantations recited with the name of the person who is ill, with their mother's name, Chol Kitri Bismal, and all knots you tied on the left arm. My mother told me, all incantations are whose, when you repeat them the amount of times, you should repeat them like they're told you to repeat. But if you don't know how many times they'll say an incantation, what's the lucky number? Arba'in v'chad zimni, 41 times. Fascinating. Tana Rabbanan says Gemara 15 lines to the bottom. First one line is Kinvavarshi Yotzim Bavin Tekuma. What person let it go out with a preserving stone? B'Shabbos. This is a stone that somehow has the curative healing powers to preserve a pregnancy, prevent miscarriages. Even with the counterweight of a preserving stone, which is something that was weighted against such a stone, because Rameir held that also somehow prevented miscarriages. And it's not only if she had miscarriages, then that's one thing. But Elishema Tibel, even if we have a woman, she's just nervous. Not only if she knows she's already pregnant. So we can have a woman, she gets married, she's allowed to go out with the 7 Tekuma, says her mayor, she's not pregnant yet, she never had a miscarriage yet, but she wants to prevent it all, then it would be allowed. Only if the weight is mechuvan, it's precise according to Rameir, the same weight as this other Evet Tekuma, that's when it works. Baya, mishkal de mishkal dami. What if the weight of the stone is that also going to prevent miscarriages? Says Gemara, Teku, and we're going to have to wait for Eliyahu Navi to answer that one. One more shtickle of Amar Rabbi Amrli Leishta bat yema, for a fever that one gets daily. Lishko zuza chivarta, take a white zos v'lezel l'melachata, and go to a salt place. V'letzko mitkale milcha, weigh it against the weight and salt. V'letzira b'chalola deveisaver b'nira b'arka, and then take the salt and tie it by the neck opening of your shirt, and you tie it with a strand of hair. Somehow, that's going to get rid of your fever. V'loi, let's say you can't get the salt and the string and tie it around the neck. What's the next option? Leisav abrashas drachim, sit at the chorus rows. When you see a large ant, wonderful, carrying something, lishkale, take that ant, put it in a copper tube. And close the tube with lead. Seal it with 60 different seals. And shake up the tube with this ant inside, of course. Lidre, carry it, and as you carry this tube that was shaken with 60 seals with the ant inside, say, Te'una alach, your burden upon me, my burden upon you, and then somehow your fever will miraculously disappear. Another person might have used this ant and stopped his suffering through it, and therefore what you might be doing is when you say my suffering on you and your suffering on me, maybe this ant is carrying someone else's issues, and guess what? You're now going to get rid of your fever, but you can get someone else's illnesses. So you got to change what you tell the ant. My burden and your burden are upon you, the ant. Let's say you can't do the whole ant story. We'll conclude with this. Let's go a small, new earthenware vessel, Lizel and Hara, go to the river, and say, Nahara, Nahara, Usbin Kuza Damaya, lend me a vessel full of water, to heal the illness upon me. Take the vessel full of water and circle around your hand, the head, shtukal kaparis, 7 times, and throw the water behind you into the river of Leim. Nara, Nara. That's it. Take it back. Shkol Maya, take the water davali that you gave me, the orcha, the iklili. Why? Because this thing that has come upon me, this fever, came upon me today, and now it's left. Now it's to you. Water, take my fever. We'll pick it up from here.